This is Spinal Tap. Is about a fictional band. The band doesn't exist, but they do exist. They existed after they didn't exist, and when they made this, they acted like they didn't exist. They acted like they did exist for the past 20 years when they didn't exist, and then they released an album that didn't exist at the time they were making this. That did exist after the movie came out. That album does exist, even though the band didn't exist, and the albums that came before didn't exist. But that album did exist, and it's about a band back in the UK in the 80s, right? Back in the UK in the 80s, and they're being filmed by a journalist man named DeBerge, played by Rob Reiner, one of the greatest filmmakers of our time. I haven't seen most of his films. I have seen Spinal Tap, obviously, and I have seen The Princess Bride. Both of them are fantastic films. The Princess Bride is one of my favorite films of all time. I don't know if I would call Spinal Tap one of my favorite films of all time, but I definitely think it's one of the film that really gets better every single time you watch it. The first time you watch it, especially when you know nothing about it, it's not really that funny. It is kind of funny, but maybe you're expecting something a little bit differently, especially if you don't know what it is going into it. You know, maybe you think it's something else going in, and maybe you think the music was actually supposed to be like more hair metal or something to be given the look of Spinal Tap, and it didn't turn out to be anything like that. It sounds more like Kiss music, right? Or Kiss meets a British Kiss, but they're not. Facial makeup, maybe probably could have gone through a phase where they tried to do that in the 70s to stay relevant. That could have been a funny joke, but this is mostly trying to make fun of the bands in Britain at the time, you know, like the Beatles and all that stuff, right? And this is about documenting their latest album that they're making, and you know, the album had a raunchy cover. And I was able to find that raunchy cover. The album they ended up making is just the Black Album. It's just black, right? And it's a joke about the Beatles' White Album, because Metallica hadn't made the Black Album yet to make fun of that. Because, you know, the Black Album is a 1990 thing, and this is made in the 80s. So Metallica was around, but the Black Album wasn't. So this was their Black Album. That's the fun. That was the joke at the time, you know. So it was making fun of the Beatles' White Album, and White and Black and all that stuff. And they made an album cover. I saw this album cover. I saw it, and there was nothing wrong with it, really. In the 80s, especially in America and the States, you saw all sorts of raunchy covers. Raunchy, very, very, very raunchy looking suggestive things. Take a look at Manowar's Gods of War album art. You'll see three dudes looking like Conan the Barbarian, rock gods, and they're standing upon a mountain of hot babes, and you know. And then there's another album cover that pops off the top of my head by a band called XYZ. If you haven't heard of XYZ, man, you gotta, you know, if you're into hair metal, you know, and you think you're not sick of it enough, you need to check out the third wave, right? The stuff that was trying to come out in the 90s, trying to revive that era of the 80s that's been already overly saturated, but they still kept going, right? XYZ has an album called Hungry. It's called Hungry, and I actually really like Hungry. Hungry's a fantastic little thing, and look at the album art of that, right? It's a werewolf dude in a leather jacket, big biker dude, but he's a werewolf, right? And he's got this girl up against the wall. It looks like he's about to eat her, right? And that's why it's called Hungry, but it's suggestive, right? And they allowed that, you know, they allowed that. They allowed that to go in because they said, why not? You know, why not? They allowed the Gods of War from Manowar. Why not? Why not? They allowed a lot of things. Why not? Why not? But, you know, this is Britain. You know, this is Britain, the 50s, 60s, radio nasties, and then they did video nasties. Britain, you know, a lot of the, not necessarily the people, but a lot of those execs, you know, a lot of the people making the decisions, that like the video nasties and the radio nasties, a lot of people making decisions for everybody else. they kind of, they kind of have sticks. They have sticks. They call them sticks. And these sticks get to be shoved. They tend to be shoved up places, And sometimes a stick could be this small, and they might have decent perspectives. Their perspectives might be fine. But then, sometimes sometimes that stick could be a little bit bigger. Sometimes that stick could be a little bit bigger. Maybe it needs to be a little bit longer too. Maybe it needs to be a little bit longer. Or sometimes that stick is so ginormously radiously large that it's like that. And it goes all the way up, all the way up until it comes out their mouth. So that way they can't really speak. All they could do is shake their heads at everything that they keep pruning their heads at. They keep shaking their heads. No, this is too raunchy. No, this is too bloody. No. And so these sticks just keep on shoving out the same perspectives because everybody has the same stick. It's the same stick. It goes up one person, come out the mouth. It goes up the next person, comes out their mouth. It's the same stick. It's like a big spit roast of video nasties and radio nasties. And so that's probably what they were making a joke at, is that they didn't like this. It was a little raunchy, but it wasn't nearly as bad. I looked at it. It's not near that's part of the joke. It's not bad at all. But they didn't let them keep the album cover. They didn't let them keep it. They said, don't do it. So they made the black album instead. And there are a lot of other jokes throughout here. They definitely get a lot more funnier on the second watch, the third watch, the fourth watch. And you come in here and you watch it again, and you see a lot of things that you didn't notice before. You weren't really paying attention to it. You were just watching the performance and you're listening to the music. Because the music's actually pretty fun. The music's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty decent. But the performances, a lot of them are going haywire. They're going terrible. In one of the performances, one of the guitarists, he's trying to do a hair metal solo. He leans all the way back onto his back, lays on his back playing the guitars, but he can't get up. So he waves one of the pages to come in to help him get back onto his feet. And there's another performance where they have these little cages that open up that the band members come out in, and one of them has the cage. It doesn't open up. He's stuck. So throughout the entire performance, he's playing the guitar playing his bass in the cage, and they're trying to open it up, and then it finally opens up and he comes out. The crowd goes wild. I love it. I absolutely love the carnage and chaos that happens throughout these performances. And DeBerge, Rob Reiner, played by Rob Reiner, DeBerge's character in universe seems to be self-aware. He seems to know, not that this is a mockumentary or anything like that, no, but he seems to be aware that the band members themselves are absolutely insane. He seems to be aware that they're crazy. He seems to be aware that this, because he's building this up. When he's interviewing them, he's building them up to keep replying, to keep responding with the most absurd ways. He keeps on directing them to say more and more absurd things. You could say that that's how it was written, so that he could direct the jokes to come out, but it also feels very meta, like DeBerge knows that that's funny, and he wants them to say the funny thing, so that he could get it into his documentary. It's meta. It's a mockumentary of rock documentaries, but DeBerge seems to be making a documentary that's already intended to be funny about British bands at the time. It's amazing. It is absolutely fantastic. I love DeBerge's, Rob Reiner's performance in here, and I also love the performances of everybody else in the band. I love the joke about the drummer always meeting a terrible fate. I love that. That's very funny. They don't make it obvious. The drummer that they have been using for the majority of this album just meets a terrible fate on stage, and then they just introduce the next drummer. That was very funny to me. Stonehenge is actually a genuinely decent song. I really like that one. You gotta listen to these albums. You gotta listen to some of these. They're pretty good. This is Spinal Tap is pretty good.